Yo, what's up, Rotogrinders? 11 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, 8 on the AM, the ungodly hour of 8 o'clock in the AM. If you guys are out there on the West Coast, good morning. Hopefully you have your coffee working or whatever kind of, your rock star. I don't know what wakes y'all up.
I got Red Bull.
Red Bull, that's your thing? I thought you can't drink certain, it's coffee you don't like to drink, right?
Well, I mean, just stomach-wise. I mean, this isn't, the Red Bull ain't good for you either, but it's better than coffee.
Is it the standard? I saw you. I heard you hold it up, but I didn't watch. Is that are you like the old school, like original flavor? Or you like the
not the sugar-free. No, if I'm going to be unhealthy, I'm going to be extremely unhealthy.
No half measures.
Just right. No, right. There's no such thing. Don't try to fool yourself and to be like, well, it's sugar-free Red Bull, so it's fine. It's like, no, it's not fine. So you might as well just drink the sugar one.
Healthy. But by the way, why Red Bull is like the like Rockstar tastes better than Red Bull's not like an amazing flavor, is it? You like the
it's more. I'm a creature of habit. So like when I was playing poker, that's how I got into Red Bull. I mean, that's not a good excuse. And it wasn't bad, but I just like, I know what this is. So instead of like paying $4 for an energy drink and going, oh, this tastes like crap, but just like I know this, so I might as well just drink that.
You talked about your poker stories on a variety of occasions when it just sort of comes up organically. I picture, were you like in like some of those the places they go in rounders, like the underground poker rooms? Is that kind of what you're involved
but not as shady as they are in rounders. But no, but a lot of times they were just in office buildings or like warehouse spaces or whatever. But I mean, it's some in southern Brooklyn, like I knew the one place I played was like run by the Russian mob. I only played there maybe 2 or 3 times, but for the most part, you're dealing with your business people are there and students, and just it's an eclectic mix of people. People aren't coming in with weapons and stuff. It's not that shady, really. Well, at least the time that I was playing. This is like the mid 2000s. Maybe in the 80s and 90s, it was a little bit more shady.
And you don't make any like Knish jokes or like any Oreo jokes. Just don't even reference the
the rounders I mean, that's like the canonical poker movie, like especially in the boom in 2004, 2005, like era, like people got into poker because of rounders and World Series and World Poker Tour. So like I've seen rounders because I ran a room and we had like a DVD player and someone would put on rounders every damn night.
And you hated it. It's too cliche.
No, because I've seen it 700 times or whatever. And then you'd have the people that make all the lines, the references from the movie. So I mean, people still did that, but it considered a little tacky. Like if you were a professional poker player, you weren't quoting from rounders.
No, I wouldn't think so. Great movie though. You'll still say it's a good movie. You could separate yourself from like having to be exposed to it.
I think it's the best. I think it's the best poker movie there is.
I'm trying to think what else would be in the conversation. But the other thing that really helped the poker boom that like people don't talk about, you know what it is? The NHL strike. The NHL strike led to ESPN needing content. They're like, oh my God, we need content because they had NHL rights at the time, and then somebody said, hey, let's throw poker on TV. And that's what kind of, and then I'm pretty sure like poker was drawing better ratings than hockey, and hockey kind of screwed itself, and then they lost a major contract for years, right? They were on like Versus or something like that. But yeah, good job, hockey. We're going to be talking today's morning slates. It's not one good thing we have here, Blender, is that DK and Fanduel, they got together and they coordinated, and they have the exact same slate today and this evening as well. We'll be back later on tonight. Well, at least I will. I don't think you will. 2 Grinders Lives today, 2 Crunch Times today. We're, of course, taking you guys straight all the way up the lock. I believe it's TJ and Andre and chief meteorologist Kevin Roth taking you guys straight up the lock, 1240 on the East Coast as far as this first part 1 of the Grinders Live today. We got the core slate later on this evening we'll be talking about. I'm curious, Blender, this is normally your time. Like, this is normally your show where you kind of like dig into stuff that happened last night. And I was digging into the second slate more than the first slate. And like I only had so much time, so like I want to yield to you a good bit as far as the slate. Of course, I looked at some stuff.
Good. Because I only spent 15 minutes looking at this early slate, while you spent 5 minutes.
No, I spent more than 5 minutes. Well,
we still have lineups coming in. I mean, even for this slate, we're still waiting on. We just got the Seattle lineup. We just got the Houston lineup just came in, because some of the things that I looked at, a half an hour ago, are going to slightly change. But we're gonna we have right as of right now, all the lineups are in. So I just have to refresh some of my pages, and I think I'm good to go to tell you, all the stuff that looks good that you shouldn't play. Here's the best team on the slate, X amount.
Yeah, but normally on this show, and I'm curious, like, I want to know like your thought process or like your daily process, because we have this early slate, 6 games, I believe it is. Is that correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 6. And like you said, it cuts it off. We don't include the Tampa Bay Oakland game. The last game on both the Fanduel slate and the DK slate is Seattle versus Houston. What's your daily process? What do you look at? Are you looking at, well, for me, I like the Ross weather. I want to make sure, like, I want to know weather is perfectly fine or something to keep in mind at all times, that kind of thing. But what's like the first thing, the second thing, the third thing you're looking at when we have the 6-game slate? I'm curious what Blender's process is, because like you said, like once you figure out what's good, then okay, should I cross that out? Is it worth crossing it out? Are other people going to be playing it?
Here are the pages. I'll tell you the exact pages, the tabs that I have open, because this is literally what I do for any slate for MLB. I have lineup HQ open with the bat projections. So that's one. So obviously it has all the players and all the projections and all everything. Then I'll have the starting lineups page, right? Now I'm usually referencing that when it's like, is there a lineup in? Did a lineup change? Did it see who's, like stuff like that. Like it's more of a reference tool. A lot of times I leave that open after lock because sometimes we don't have lineups in. Like the Giants lineup came out after lock, and I had one lineup with Lamont Wade in it, right? And I had to change it to Mauricio Dubon because he's not in the lineup anymore. Then I have the weather. You're right. Like that's to make sure that everything's fine. I think on this slate, the only game we really have to worry about is the Cardinals-Royals game. Roth has it as it's that scattered showers. They should get the game in, but at some point the whole day is going to be washed out. So I don't know. So we'll have to check crunch time after this show on this stream, and Roth will update that. So that's the only game. It's still yellow. Probably still plays. So I have that up. And then I put up the standard projections for the bat. It's a standard projection page. And I'm putting that up typically for the pitchers. And a lot of times to make sure what umpires are in. And remember, I'm doing this not to look at the umpires, just to make sure that when the umpire, that if there's no umpire, no roof status, no anything like that, those pitcher projections may change. So really, I'm not looking at this as a reference tool, just as a way for me to gauge. It's like, okay, does this projection include this umpire that just came? Like, is it or isn't it? Right. And also it shows projected pitch count. So if I'm looking for like ceiling and it goes like, oh, this guy projects very well, but projected pitch count is 81 or something like that. It's like, I don't know what the ceiling is. Like it's just a reference guide. Then I have the main thing that I look at, simply the bat stacks page. So just looking at a combinations, the average of 4 and 5 man stacks on DraftKings or 3 and 4 man stacks on FanDuel, and what I'm primarily looking at ceiling or ceiling point per dollar value, because I'm playing GPPs. I don't care about, oh, this team has a good median. Those guys tend to be overowned. So I'm looking at the ceiling, like, okay, who's the highest ceiling on today's slate? The Astros, 92.57. What's the difference between that and the next team, which is the Marlins, 84.8? So it's like an 8-point difference in ceiling, which means the Astros are by far like the best team on the slate, regardless of the price, right? Like they could be $1 million, but I'm saying as far as most likely to put up the most points. So I just look at this. So this is how I like rank, like what's the ceiling stacks based on the bat projections, Cardi's projection system. And then I'll open up DraftKings on Rotogrinders. We have a page called the top MLB stacks and stack values, team smash percentage. Now, I'm not necessarily even looking at the smash percentage, but this will give me like the average ownership of 4 and 5 man stacks on DraftKings.
What's that page, by the way? I know about the smash percentage individually, like on Lineup HQ. There's a team version of that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, there's a team, but it's called Team Smash Percentage.
Where would I find that?
It's on the MLB page. Just scroll down. I mean, you have that list with all the green buttons, with all the stuff that's view and coming soon.
Yeah.
It's where you'd find Slate IQ. But of course, Slate IQ we only have for the main slate, so I don't get that today. That would be the last page that I open, but we only run Slate IQ for one slate a day.
It's been refined. Slate IQ is good to go now. And it was kind of
it should. There are some bugs. I sometimes you will on a refresh, on an update, you'll see some weird thing, and then Tuttle will fix it. Like what I mean by a weird thing is like all of a sudden it's like, well, Minnesota has a 74% chance of being the top stack. And it's like, well, that's obviously wrong. No team is going to be 74%. So take a look at the top of the page. It'll show the update time, 3 minutes ago or whatever. If you refresh that probably in like 10 or 15 minutes, whoever ran it the first time, it'll sometimes that'll happen. So if you see something that looks completely out of whack, they'll fix it. But I just use this team smash percentage page just because it shows me the ownership of each team. I mean, that's essentially what I'm using it as a reference tool, right? Looking at Detroit being overly popular on this early slate, right? And I will refresh these, 15 minutes apart or whatever, new lineups come in, right? This ownership is going to change. And that's all that's all I need. So really all I'm doing is comparing the ceiling values of the bat, right? Versus the ownership of the team stacks. And then also looking at based on how the value of players, because one of the biggest exploitations in baseball, which is an event-driven sport, is that people prioritize mean or median values more than they should, right? Yeah. It's highly variant and the range of outcomes is not normally distributed. So you'll look and I'll go here and even I'll switch between the bat and the plate IQ projections because they're going to be somewhat different. So I could look at hitters and go if people are just going to, maybe Juan Yepez batting 5th for the Cardinals is going to be a little overowned. We have his ownership as 14%, but maybe because he's a 2K outfielder on a 6-game slate against Bubik batting 5th, he's going to end up being 20% though.
I don't think I know who that is. I'm Googling it.
I don't know who it is either, but I mean, it's 2K and he's batting 5th.
Okay.
But Edward Olivares or someone I take a look at was very high point per dollar values and go maybe they're going to be slightly more owned. So because their median value is high, and you could even do that in the bat stacks page by who comes in as the top stacks. We have from a value perspective, from a point per dollar value perspective, as of right now, the Marlins have the best point per dollar value on you have the Marlins, you have the Diamondbacks, and you have the Royals because they're all cheap teams and they don't project horribly. They project decently. Miami's number 2 in ceiling, according to the bat. But that also means that their ownership is going to go up. And typically that's not reflected in the plate IQ ownership. So I will now judge. That's just like yesterday. Remember, Dean, on yesterday's slate, we had Milwaukee on FanDuel.
Yeah. Right.
And I said, I'm going to play, but I think Milwaukee will be slightly overowned. And we're looking at Milwaukee, 3% for Tellez, 4% for Yelich. And I go,
this was wrong. Yeah.
Right. I'm just telling you it's wrong. I'm telling you, rationally, that may be true, if all things considered, but I know human beings. And it's people are going to jam this in. It's going to be more 10, 11. Tellez came in at 15%. Yelich was 11%. Wong was 9%. I mean, they weren't ridiculously owned, but they weren't 2 or 3% owned. So that's how I look at this and go well, what are the Marlins going to look like? Well, whatever the Marlins look like, it's going to be slightly higher, right? Whatever the Diamondbacks, that may be slightly higher. Let's see what pitchers look like that. We have we go to the pitcher and it's Like Chris Bubik, right, at 5,300 on DraftKings is not going to be 3% owned. Now, he's not going to be 30% owned, but he's probably not going to be 3% owned when he's the best point per dollar value in the bat. And even if you go to the Plate IQ projections, it's not like he's that bad, right? So you just have to kind of mentally adjust these things, either or manually, or just literally change the numbers. But a lot of times I'm not necessarily changing the numbers because I'm just trying to build stacks and pitchers together. And as long as I'm not building lineups that have absurd ownership numbers, I'm perfectly fine. So is that a good overview of my process?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that a good overview of my process?
Yeah, no, that's what I was asking for. That's what I wanted. I was curious. And Weather Edge is another thing. When I mentioned Weather, I should have mentioned Weather Edge too. Is another thing I'm looking at as well. We keep talking about it this time of year. The Weather Edge, the sample sizes aren't that huge. There are 6 games. 2 games, I presume, will have domes. We'll see. As far as Miami, I assume the roof will be on. And the second one, of course, Houston. No Pena in that lineup for what it's worth. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that's kind of missing that we would kind of expect. A lot of times day game after night game, that kind of thing. MJ Melendez is back in that lineup for Kansas City. He was DHing last night. I assume he's DHing once again. I was watching the broadcast and his family was on there. It was pretty cool. He got himself a base hit. He hit a barrel. He almost banged one out, but what does a barrel do these days? Just a long fly out, it seems like. We need to get a few more homers. By the way, I can confirm a proof of life on Juan Yepez. And he's actually been banging out a bunch of homers in the minors this year. This looks like it will be his MLB debut. Last season, he had, combination of AA and AAA, 27 home runs. So he's got some pop in that bat. And this year in AAA, 9 homers in just 22 games. So he's hot, if you believe such things. And he's got, a raw power of 60 score, according to Fangraphs. Not a huge prospect in the team, according to Fangraphs as well. The 18th best prospect in St. Louis's system. But, looks like he has some raw power for what it's worth, and he will have the platoon advantage against Chris Bubik. Cardinals, one of the more interesting teams, and it just kind of speaks to the slate because there's not a ton of offense here, a 6-gamer. I think the Houston offense, it looks like the most appealing. And then you said the Marlins are second. Is that correct?
According to the bat, yes.
Yeah.
It really what stands out stack-wise is that Houston's above all, and then you could bunch pretty much all the teams underneath that. Like the difference between the Marlins, like the difference between the Astros and the Marlins from 1 and 2 is larger than the difference between the Marlins and the Royals at the bottom. Right? So the difference, 1 to 2 is this much, and that space encapsulates all 11 other teams. So from the Marlins down to the last, that's the difference. So like when I say Marlins is number 2, it's like the difference between the Marlins and the Pirates is a point, not even, right? Like, and then the rest of the teams go to like St. Louis is another couple of points. I mean, like, there's not that much difference. It's really the Astros and then kind of everyone else.
Marlins are letting Jazz play today versus the lefty. He's not leading off. He's batting 6th. They got Birdie leading off, so some speed there, top of the lineup, and Jazz some speed in the middle, obviously too. Against Mad Bum, I was looking at Weather Edge, and Cleveland, 56-game sample, a downgrade of homers at 23%, downgrade of runs at 15%. It's cold still, 50 degrees, winds blowing in about 8 miles per hour, not amazing. First half of doubleheader. I believe 2 of these games are first half of doubleheaders. San Diego and Cleveland is the first half of a doubleheader, as well as Pittsburgh and Detroit, first half of a doubleheader. For the Mets, it's not a huge sample, but the Weather Edge is not popping either. 25-game sample, downgrade of 22% of homers. And, again, not particularly warm, 57 degrees, slight wind blowing in. So that's, I guess, to be expected. And in KC, also pretty cool, 53 degrees, and wind blowing in at 8 miles per hour. Therefore, a downgrade of homers at 22% in a 38-game sample. And, of course, it's not a good home run park, as is. This is the same deal, right? We're all dealing with the same slate. The Astros are the biggest team on the board with a 4.64 team total against Matt Brash, young arm, pretty good prospect actually, but obviously not a complete project just yet. And then the Marlins facing Mad Bum, who's he's in the back end of the back 9 and round hole 16, 17, 18 or so, just kind of playing out that contract. He's pretty rough these days, obviously. But you want to start as far as pitchers, because I think Verlander is the guy that people are going to be looking at. You're going to have the money for Verlander. It's not very hard to play him. I assume I got to pull up the bat with Cardi and all that kind of stuff. I assume that's that's the top pitching play, and it's not even close, really.
From a raw point perspective, yeah, he projects 3 points higher than McGill. So but even from a point per dollar standpoint, like he's number 2. Like Bubik, the bat has at 13, but he's 5,300. So it's not like Bubik. Just understand, Bubik to me is my favorite play, 5,300. Like you're paying up for everyone bats, but I mean, like from a ceiling, like Bubik. I mean, what's his pitch count? Like his pitch count can't be that high. Bubik, 99. Okay, but I mean, with the pitcher's umpire, okay, maybe that's not that bad. But I mean,
not all pitches are created equal. Bubik's pitches are not that great,
right? But Verlander is the second highest point per dollar pitcher in the bat, and he's also the most expensive. So typically, when the highest price pitcher and the highest raw points pitcher is also one of the highest point per dollar pitchers, it's hard to not play them on a 6-game slate. But I mean, obviously, the 2 most popular pitchers are going to be Verlander and McGill.
Yeah.
They're also the 2 most expensive pitchers. You're gonna be playing some cheap bats with that type of construction. So, like in GPPs, maybe like I say, the best way could be to pay up for bats that really aren't worth those. But it's baseball, and anything could happen. But I'm much more likely to have Verlander in a lineup than McGill in a lineup. I think the interesting ones are the ones after them, and from what I'm seeing here, like if you want to pay down slightly lower, the popular plays are going to be Eliezer Hernandez and Adam Wainwright. I think I'd much rather play Ian Anderson against the Mets if I had to choose. And I don't know how popular Mike Clevenger is going to be. This is his first start. I know it's a revenge game. I don't have to bother saying it. I mean, what's his projected pitch count? I mean, if it's his first, what was he pitching in the minors or the rehab starts or whatever? Because I can't see them giving him that much of a leash, right? 85. We got 85 in the back. I think that may be a little high. So do you have any clue on what's going to happen with Clevenger?
Yeah, Clevenger is an X out for me. Revenge, whatever. I don't care. You got to be on the field to get revenge, I suppose. Not that revenge is a real thing in baseball either. But yeah, he had 3 starts, and none of them he made it out of the 4th inning or so. Maybe he throws like 65, 70 pitches, whatever it is. But it's just no. I'm not playing him. That's that. But we have in the chat. What's up, chat? We haven't said hello to YouTube. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications. Fire off your questions. We appreciate your comments, even if they're like I don't want to say negative. It's Barry in chat says Bubik is horrid, and he kind of is. But like, you explain why you will still play Bubik.
I'm not saying he's bad. The whole point is like, can I get 10 to 15 points from him in a decent start against the Cardinals? Sure, yeah, there's a probability that could happen. And he's 5,300, and now you could pay up for you could play all the expensive Astros. Like it's a construction that other people that are playing Verlander plus Wainwright, Verlander plus Anderson. Well, Anderson 7,400. Eliezer Hernandez or McGill just really can't do. So basically, at 5,300, you need what would be a good points for a batter, right? Imagine if you have a $5,300 outfielder that gets 14 points. You're happy, right? That's like a home run. So I'm playing that in the starting pitcher spot. Remember, I don't predict outcomes. All I'm doing is that, okay, his median outcome is 13.02 according to the bat. But his floor is 2 and his ceiling is 25. So good luck with that. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's like I don't know. He could have a good game. He could have a bad game. But his median game compared to other pitchers on the slate for his price is a bit too low. Not absurdly too low. Like if Bubik was 7,000, I wouldn't be talking about. I wouldn't even have mentioned him. Right? Right? So that's the difference. Like this is a guy that should be like 6,500 and he's 5,300. So he's technically underpriced.
I think the other part of that is what's the opportunity cost of SP2 or even however you want to say it. Like, it's a 6-game slate. You're just looking for him to basically survive. And we've already talked about Clevenger. By the way, I think our projection on Clevenger is a little bit generous for what it's worth.
Well, what is the plate IQ projection on him?
Well, actually, I have the Bat X projections got like 14 DK points, which to me,
but he's 8,700. A 14 is pretty bad.
Yeah, I know, but I just think that seems like okay, considering I think he's gonna be somewhat limited. And I don't think he goes beyond 5. We'll see. Maybe he's super efficient or something like that. And yeah, so the opportunity cost, like who's really going to break the slate from a pitching perspective? Really, it's Verlander and probably nobody else. Like Wainwright, I guess he can drop a Maddox and go CGSO and strike out 5. Like that's something we've seen him do. Like he can do that, but it's probably not going to happen. He's not going to strike out 10, right? Anderson's not a guy that's going to pile up a bunch of strikeouts. Elias Hernandez is fine, but he's not going to strike out a bunch of dudes. Like, what is the opportunity cost is basically what the point I'm making, and if you could survive with Bubic, he can put up like 12 or 13 points. And I'm not saying he will, he can. You take that. You love it happily. And like you said, the pairing is going to be probably Verlander and McGill on DK. The ownership reflects that too, 49% and 48%. Pretty obvious. I'm jumping over to Fanduel, by the way. I'm curious what we have as far as our projections there. And I'd imagine it's somewhat similar, but cut in half.
Yeah, on FanDuel, like just to make it clear, FanDuel, you don't have to play Bubic.
Yes.
Like FanDuel, you never have to go all the way down at pitcher to some guy that may get 30 points. I mean, like just play one of the top pitchers. It's really DraftKings where it's like, oh, you need a second starting pitcher, and do you pay up twice and then not be able to have an expensive stack, or do you pay down, hope for the best? And if you look at our Slate IQ, I just want to show with that, like, I'm not coming from crazy town. I'm not coming from some nutso space. If you analyze, we've simulated all the slates at pretty much, if you look at Slate IQ every day, like we have a section on like construction types that win more than the field owns them. The top construction type, which is the main reason why you don't have to look at it every day, because it's always the same. It's just the slight number change, but it'll always show that stud pitcher, cheap pitcher is typically the highest ceiling construction you can make, right? So playing Verlander and Bubic in the long run, right? Finding some Michael Pineda, you want to take a shot on him, right? It may not work out today, right? But over the long run, that construction is less owned overall than what it wins at. So like that's positive expected value. That's positive leverage. That's all you're asking for. You're not asking for what's going to happen. It's how much more money do you make when it happens? So like, that's why I look for these guys, like the 5K, 6K guys that at least are going to pitch a bunch, right? I'm not talking about the 5K guys that open and pitch for 2 innings. I'm talking about, okay, they can pitch 90 pitches.
Oh, speaking of taking crazy pills, tell me I'm not taking crazy pills, because go on the lineup HQ, go on Fanduel, and like add up the ownership in your head as far as pitchers, because my UCF math in my head is telling me this does not add up to 100. Somebody's got to work on this. Somebody's got to tinker this, because this does not equal 100 points. We have the highest owned pitcher on Fanduel right now for the early slate at Verlander at 10%. Like,
that's not going to happen.
This math is wrong.
No, you got to reload. No, I'm getting Verlander at 36.
I'm hitting refresh. What's going on?
Well, I'm telling you what I'm looking at. Verlander 36, McGill 26, Wainwright 15.
Maybe I need to restart my router. I don't know.
I'm looking at it's Plate IQ projections from 11-14 ownership.
All right, I'm opening up a new page, and then maybe we'll get there. But yeah, talk about it as far as on FanDuel specifically, where you're roster one pitcher, and like you said, a guy like Bubic on FanDuel is not necessarily as useful.
I mean, even Eliezer Hernandez, if I'm going to pay down on FanDuel, just to play Eliezer Hernandez against the Arizona, he's 7,200. So I feel much more comfortable with him for the $1,200 ain't going to do you much, because FanDuel pricing is a bit softer, right? Also, Wainwright is a little bit cheaper for the FanDuel salaries at 8,500 than he is on DraftKings, although I will not be playing Wainwright today. Yeah, you're pretty much Verlander McGill, 10-8 Verlander, 9-5 McGill. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, I mean, to me, it's about the same. And then Eliezer Hernandez, if you want to go down. And I don't mind this ownership, right?
Yeah, facing an Arizona team that obviously is not very good, really bad, actually. It's strange. I know Ketel Marte's not been special this year. He's not been great, but it's weird that he's batting 6th in this lineup. But that's just sort of what they're doing these days. Eliezer, not incredible, but perfectly fine. Dating back to last season, his Ks were 23%. The walks are good, less than 6% as far as walks. pretty good strikeout matchup here against Arizona, 24.3%. Good pitchers ballpark as well. If you look at the plate IQ, there's really only one guy or two guys that are popping from an ISO from a power perspective, and that's Barshow and Hummel, two guys we're not afraid of. It's a rough lineup for Arizona. And but again, Elias Hernandez is not a guy that's going to blow the slate up, but he's also like a good play. Like you're saying, both sides of it. And you're probably not going to lose because you didn't have Elias Hernandez.
He is the third highest strikeout prop on the slate.
What is it? 5.5?
No, well, 4.5 minus 149.
Okay, so that's basically.
I'm just looking on Lineup HQ. I mean, sometimes by to me, why not use Lineup HQ by proxy? If I had to choose ceiling wise, you want strikeouts, right? Essentially in MLB DFS. So I could just look down the line and go, okay, who has a better strikeout prop than another guy in comparison to, if I have to choose between multiple people. I see Adam Wainwright 4.5 positive, right? Plus 118. So it's like, why am I paying $8,500 for a guy that basically is projected by the betting market to have one less strikeout than Eliezer Hernandez, who's 400 cheaper?
Is he projected to go further? Like Wainwright's kind of more of an innings eater.
Right. Well, true. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's more based off its projection, but I care more about if they go 7 innings, how many strikeouts do they have? I mean, from a GPP mindset, like Wainwright to me seems fine for a median, right? Like that type. Okay, great. Can he get me 16 points? Well, okay. Probably more often than Eliezer Hernandez gets 16 points because Eliezer Hernandez has, a wider range of outcomes. But for GPPs, I don't want safe. I want can Eliezer Hernandez, it's the Diamondbacks lineup, right? He could go out, he could strike out 10, right? That could happen. 9, he could go 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs. And for his price, he may, beat out a McGill or a Verlander or something. But Wainwright, on the other hand, I don't know, 7 innings, 3 strikeouts, 1 earned run. I mean, that's his like best case type of scenario. He's been walking a lot of guys. I'm always afraid of guys that walk like that. I've said this on this show before. I like targeting pitchers that walk people a lot, and I try to stay away from the ones that do because next thing you know, they walk one guy, they walk another guy, and the next guy drives a double in, and it's like there you go. It ruins you. I don't mind Alek Manoah. I don't mind Pablo Lopez the other day. Gives up a bunch of runs, but also strikes out 7 or 8 guys. It's like they'll score more in DFS, even giving up runs. But the guys that only strike out 4 and may walk a bunch of guys, like there's a margin of error there that they give up 3 or 4 runs, like they're dead. Like you ain't getting 20 points from them.
Well, that's the thing. You have those guys that give up 2 or 3 runs in the first 3 innings or so, and you can't recover. You can't. You're dead. Now you're just trying to salvage best possible. But you have those K guys that can give up 2 runs in the first inning and still strike out 10 and go 5 or 6 and give up no more runs, and they're perfectly fine. But that's, you can be dead right away, like you're saying. But like also Wainwright, he's 40. He's a man. Like, does he want to still? He's been great. He had a renaissance last season, and I know he was dealing with injuries before that. And it's just wild that he's 40 years old and he's kind of exceeding at this point. Obviously, he was really good for a long time when he was younger. This KC lineup, by the way, as far as strikeouts offered, it's kind of a mixed bag. O'Hearn's in there, which is good to see. By the way, when lefty comes in, O'Hearn almost definitely gets the hook for the record. If you're considering something like him, we've seen that. We saw it last night as well. He'll get taking a pinch hit for. I imagine he's the DH. Actually, no, but I don't know. Maybe Melendez is a DH. I've not looked at that just yet. But
I think Perez is the DH. Melendez is catching.
Okay, so there you go.
Because it's the day game after a night game, so they probably switch so they could save Perez's knees.
Perez played 155 games or so last year for a catcher, which is insane. But he didn't catch every one of them, obviously. But yeah, catchers usually get rested like once every 3 days, whatever it is. The good ones. What about McGill? But by the way, I pulled up the bat here as far as the projections for strikeouts. Verlander 6.66 projected strikeouts. McGill next at 6.07 versus Atlanta, and Atlanta's not a team. Like if this was like a regular slate, if you want to say it that way. And we've had a couple of slates where there's 5 or 6 or 7 pitchers that I like and they're kind of in the bag. McGill would be kind of back in the line. I don't really want to pick on Atlanta. I think McGill's fine, but
I think McGill's way better than people think he is.
He's fine. I
don't think he's fine. I think he's a very good pitcher.
I don't know if I want to pay 9.7K against Atlanta. But again, I have the money to do it. Is the other part of it. So like I might as well, I guess, but not necessarily. Producer Steve chiming in, Met fan. So an unbiased opinion for sure is telling us we should roster some Tyler McGill. How do you feel about slipping McGill?
Well, I'm going to be playing Verlander, so I'm like, I don't have to worry about McGill. The $400 difference on DraftKings, like, if a lot of people are, because the whole point that I'm making is that a lot of people are going to be making Verlander McGill lineups, and you're going to have two like 50% owned pitchers together. I'm building 5 lineups on DraftKings, okay? So it's not like I'm building a million lineups. I'm just not going to play them together. So, like, and if I'm not going to play them together, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't just find the 400 to just play Verlander in the lineups instead of McGill. Maybe that doesn't work out today. Who knows? But I trust Verlander, his strikeout upside against Seattle than McGill's strikeout upside against Atlanta, even though the Mets, not great hitting environment today.
No.
But it also doesn't mean when we get to bats that I really want to play the Braves bats because they're expensive for the situation they're in.
You're supposed to gravitate to that. The blender. What was
I'm doing something else. You don't have to do every leverage thing, right?
WWBD. What would Blender do? Blender would play the overpriced bats because nobody else is doing it.
Yeah, but you can't play Verlander in those lines. The problem is you can't play Verlander in those lineups.
Yeah. Well, you were saying playing Verlander or McGill, like, and you were talking about Slate IQ, how it normally talks about like one big, expensive guy, one cheap guy. So you're just intentional. And of course, we have the money. It's not hard to play Verlander or McGill. You just don't want to do that because that's what everybody else is doing. That's one way of being different.
Right. I mean, that's pretty much it. And then I like attacking the SP2s. So it's like, to me, instead of playing the Braves at they're really expensive, the top of their lineup. I mean, half their guys are over 5K and they have a 3.25 team total in a bad hitting environment against a good pitcher. Yeah, they'll be like barely owned. I get it. If you wanted to do that, I get it. Okay. You're talking to me, right? I get it.
Yeah.
I just think that maybe there's a better option on playing the Royals against Wainwright or playing the Diamondbacks against Hernandez. Because I think Wainwright and Hernandez on DraftKings is going to be, or even the Mets against Anderson, like these the SP2s that are going to be like 20-ish% owned. If Wainwright's going to be 30% owned, I'd much rather pick on a 30% owned Wainwright than pick on a 45% owned Tyler McGill with that, and when I have to pay $25K for a stack.
I'm just reading the chat. Some conversation going on there. What's up?
You understand that like the Royals are cheaper and the Diamondbacks are cheap, so it's like I could play Verlander in those lineups and still stack against an over-owned SP2. But with the Braves, it's like, McGill is owned, but I mean the price that I have to pay for all these guys means that like then I have to play basically a lineup of like Ian Anderson and Chris Bubik, like, and just hope that the pitchers get there. And then in those lineups, I hope the Braves score 8 runs on McGill. It's like, it seems like too much needs to happen. You could do it in large field.
They don't have to, by the way. The Braves can score like 4 runs and have 3 homers, and that's good enough on this 6-game slate.
Dude, whoever hits, I've been on this, the working whenever the working theory when I watch a slate is just whoever hits the first home run. If you have their stack, you won. That's it.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like they don't have to put up that many. It's less games, runs are down, and all that kind of stuff. We talked about it like briefly before the show. Manoah with the Yankees last night. Like the Yankees against, of course, Manoah thrived in the first 6 innings and the bullpen imploded. Sorry, TJ. I see TJ in chat. TJ is celebrating today. He's got to be super excited. It's it's May the 4th.
Right. It's Star Wars Day. Yeah. Yes.
Do you practice this holiday?
No, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I'm a Star Trek fan.
Well, you don't have to pick. I don't think you can be fans of both, right?
Yeah, but I'm not a fan of both. I think Star Wars is awful. I think Star Wars is legitimately awful. So I don't.
Legitimately awful. Is TJ on? No, he's not on right now. He's not going to be on later, right? No,
he's going to be on right after us.
Oh, okay, good. You guys can yell about that for 5 minutes if you want to, but by all means, have at it. I'll just stand, stir the pot and watch you guys go. Like you just call like all 9, or not even the original ones are good.
I mean, I stopped watching them after a while because
I think there's 9. Oh.
The thing that, okay, like just for the 60-second explanation, is that the main difference between Star Wars and Star Trek is that Star Wars is built upon some alternate universe type of thing, so they can make up whatever the hell they want. Star Trek is built around human history, so they use all the references and they have to keep within canon of what has actually happened in our civilization. So that, to me at least, that appeals more. That Star Trek canon has more, like, it feels more rules orient, more like things make more sense. While when you're world building, you can essentially make up whatever the hell you want, and that just doesn't appeal. Like the Deus Ex Machina type of stuff. Like you can make up anything that makes anything sense. Like those types of science fiction just never appealed to me.
Question in chat: is Wainwright a good pivot? We talked about Wainwright, and is he he's not? He could survive. He could be fine.
I think he's going to be overowned. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just think Wainwright will be overowned on both sides today.
I was just called a Sith Lord in chat. Is that an insult? Should I be insulted? What is a Sith Lord? Is he related to Darth Vader?
Maybe. Don't ask. I'm not the Star Wars person.
Oh, I don't know. Sith is the bad side.
Right. You want to talk to me about Klingons and Borg and whatever? That's fine. I could do that.
Can you speak Klingon? Can you drop a sentence?
No. Although I remember back in the day when I was in middle school, there was a book, the Klingon Dictionary or something. There was an actual book with Klingon where my friend had it. He was more picked on than I was.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I didn't want to. The low hanging fruit was there, but I'm like, I'll just let that go. It doesn't seem like the coolest book to be carrying in your book. Whatever. If you enjoy it, have at it. Drop your Klingon. Maybe it'll work at certain instances. All right. So, anything else that you said as far as pitchers? Oh, there's another question I saw in chat. Geez, Bubik or Bryce Wilson? I'll take Bubik over Bryce Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're kind of picking your poison there, but I have a little bit more trust. And Bubik, at least is going to start the game. Wilson, we're expecting to be the long man against the Detroit lineup. That's, not great, obviously, but oof. What else to be said here as far as pitchers? You want to talk about Stacks and how you're attacking Stacks? And we already talked about how Houston is, the clear and obvious best team. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it's going to play out. Speaks to the slate as far as how bad the bats are, that the Marlins are projecting as the second best team. Marlins lineup, there is some power in it. Abastiel Garcia is not playing today. He's sitting down. He's been scuffling all season long, but Cooper against the lefty, Aguilar, Soler looks like a guy that can, bang one off of Bumgarner. I think the lineup is a little more interesting for stacking because Jazz and Birdie are both in there, some speed. Of course, Birdie's got no pop at all, but how are we attacking hitters? Because, what do you do with Houston, I guess, is the first question.
I don't think Houston is going to be is going to be as chalky as people. They're not. They're going to be owned, right? But I think a lot of people are going to be more geared on the Tigers at their prices, right? Baez at shortstop, right? You have Torkelson at 2,600, Scope at 635 at second base. I mean, this is a cheap team, so Meadows may not be as popular lefty on lefty, but I don't mind that. I think the Tigers are going to be a bit over-owned today, but you can still play them. But I think that from an ownership perspective, the Tigers will be one. The Astros probably end up two, but not totally over-owned because you can make a lot of different combos here. So you don't have to play like Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, type of thing. You can mix them around. Castro's in the lineup. Mlb Diaz is there at second base. You play him instead of Altuve at 3K. So there's ways to get around that. I think St. Louis, if people, because with Yepez in there, Yepez, is that how you pronounce it? Yepez?
I just learned his existence about a half hour ago. Juan Yepez is what I'm going with, but I cannot confirm that. But again, if you guys enjoy, he's shown a ton of power so far this year and last year in the minors. Not an uber prospect, but has flashed a lot of power.
Right, but I could see Goldschmidt, Arenado, Yepez, Tyler O'Neill, Yadi Molina, because catcher sucks today. Right, I think the Cardinals will be a little bit over-owned today. I think they'll end up. I think people will think that that's sneaky, but it's not. That's what I think is going to happen. I think the type of thing where the Astros stand out so much above everyone else, ceiling-wise, that people try to I don't think it's one of these slates where it's like yesterday, cores, where something is so like, okay, people are just going to say, I'm going to stack cores and do none. Then it goes really overowned. I just think Detroit and St. Louis get more ownership than we think. And the Astros, while being a high owned team, just aren't as high owned as they should be. That's my working theory as of right now. But remember, I'm working this out while, doing the show.
Well, that's
just looking
good.
around.
It's good that that's why I was asking before about the process, because, and it's early and we're still kind of like, you're always sort of a little bit behind. You're early in the morning.
Right. I'm looking around the industry. I'm not just looking at Rotogrinders. I'm looking to see what other people are looking at. And I'm like, okay, people are going to think the Cardinals are sneaky and they're going to come in twice as owned as they should be. Right. And I'm looking around and going, okay, maybe the Astros don't come in that high. Maybe the Detroit doesn't come in that high. Like there's nothing to me, there's nothing that stands out. Like we can talk about, the Astros are the best. It's not like Coors Field the best. They don't have a 6-run total or anything. So it's like, it's not that dramatically different than other teams. But like the Marlins may come in a little bit less than I originally expected, only because it's very hard to stack this team now with Aguilar and Cooper batting second and fourth. And Peyton Henry, I don't know who he is, and I don't know.
He's their backup catcher behind James.
Right, he's not a very good catcher. Right, their lineup is not as strong as it could be, and the positions kind of don't add up. Like, do you really want to play Miguel Rojas? I mean, he's cheap. Just like you're playing Birdie at second, right, and then Brian Anderson at third. Like, they're cheap. Like, it's just the fact I hate having like the second and fourth batter being both just first base only, and you have to choose between Aguilar and Cooper. Like, that just makes it a little bit harder to stack. And then on the other side, like Arizona, you have all these outfielders. Like, I mean, just like you have like no positional. Like, a Beer at first base, and he got 4 outfielders in the top 5 of the lineup. And then you got like Jose Herrera, who's garbage catcher at the bottom. You got both Alcantara and Perdomo in, who aren't that great hitters. So it's like, it's hard to stack the Diamondbacks unless you're willing to use all your outfield spots, which may be fine. But I just look at this game, the Diamondbacks-Marlins game, is because of the positional requirements of both teams, a little bit harder than originally. I was coming in with their projected line. I was going, okay, I can stack these teams. And now I'm thinking a little bit less and less.
Travis
and maybe
Demeritte
more inclined to just play. What?
Just a heads up, Travis Demeritte was scratched for Atlanta. I'm not sure who wasn't in that is now in, but it's Acuna, Olsen, O'Reilly, Ozuna, Albies, Darno, Duvall, Swanson, and Heredia. It's probably Heredia who just probably stuck in, I imagine. Didn't mean to cut you off, but figure out to throw that out.
No problem. And now that we know Demerit's out, that changes everything. That flips its slate on the head. No, it doesn't do anything.
No, well, whose usage is opened up now? The Demerit? Oh, that's a different sport. Man. So we haven't talked about at all like Jose Ramirez, who's just a guy, he can win the slate. Like, that's that. Machado on the other side. We're not even discussing that game for whatever reason. It's for me, I just have a hard time stacking Cleveland. There's no Fran Mill in that lineup either. Like, just the nonsense around Jose Ramirez is just rough. Not a lot of power around him either. Naylor, it's got a little pop, but it's, again, anything can happen in a given day, but it's just, I don't like that lineup for Cleveland today. Zach Plesac, somebody I'm certainly fine attacking. I'm okay with it, but the San Diego lineup's kind of rough too. They're really missing Tatis. If you kind of look at that lineup, but they got Clay Thompson's brother in there batting ninth. Shout out to, I think it's Trace. I'm not sure if it's Trace or Tracy. I think it's Trace. Do you have any thoughts on the Padres or Cleveland? Like, they're on the slate. We're just acknowledging their existence, I think, for the first time.
I think Cleveland's going to be under-owned, but I mean, it's hard. I mean, they're also overpriced. I mean, some of them are. Do you want to pay $4,700 for Owen Miller? Probably not, but I mean, who else will? I'm more inclined to play Cleveland against Clevenger than San Diego against Plesac, just from a leverage standpoint. I think Clevenger will be much more owned than Plesac. Not saying that Clevenger is going to be like heavily owned. He shouldn't really be, but he's a name, and maybe more people will click on him, even though they probably shouldn't. So that makes me lean more towards the Cleveland side. But the game in general, it's 50 degrees and the wind's blowing in. The total on the game is 7. It's not as appealing. I'm more inclined, if the team that we haven't talked about is to play the Pirates against Pineda. because the Pirates are cheap. They're the away team. Yeah, I mean, none of the weather around is very good. So it's 55 degrees and the wind's blowing out a little. So
yeah,
it's cold everywhere pretty much. But the Pirates, I mean, like Ben Gamel, 3,500. Brian Reynolds, 3,300. Hayes, 3,900. Vogelback is 4,700. But if you don't want to play Vogelback at first, you can play Yoshi Tsugo at 2,600. Van Meter at 2,400. Right? So with that, it's a very lefty, like there's Brian Hayes is the only right-handed batter in this entire lineup against Pineda.
Yeah.
Now, some of these lefties may come, like we may see Cole Tucker comes out for Castillo later in the game when a lefty comes in, because you have to know that Detroit's going to throw at some lefty. There's 8 lefties, and there's either a lefty or a switch hitter in the lineup. Pineda's the type of pitcher that throws the ball right down the plate. I mean,
he's going to throw strikes, and he's not going to throw it by you.
Right. He's just going to throw strikes and hope for the best, right? And he's a fly ball pitcher. So who knows what could happen when that comes. Yes, he typically doesn't walk that many batters, but he also, he's not a control pitcher either. So it's just like he just throws fireballs down the plate, and if you can hit it, good luck. You could hit 4 home runs off of him if you want. So why not take a shot on that for these prices rather than play the Marlins or rather than play the Diamondbacks, right? Or even the Royals. Like, I like the Royals. The only reason I like the Royals is because Wainwright's going to be owned. But if I had to choose in a vacuum, the cheap team that I want to play more of is the Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, Reynolds is solid. Hayes is solid. We know that Vogelbach's just like really pricey now. He used to be like a punt first baseman. Now he's 4.7K on DK. So he has, he's got the size and the girth and the power and all that kind of stuff. But it's 4.7K is a bit steep. Not leading off today, by the way. What up with that? I thought he was a leadoff hitter. Batting cleanup. Ganmel's leading off for Pittsburgh. He is 2.8 on Fanduel, which is pretty good as far as the price. Raul in chat says home runs are down so bad they're making Blender go from apple juice to Red Bull. What's up with that?
Yeah, I haven't drank apple juice in a long time.
Was your go-to, the apple juice?
Yeah. It was coffee and then apple juice, and then it's just whatever. Water sometimes, flavored water.
Kickstart in chat. Do you think the Houston stacks, let's see, I'm reading this on the fly, and like there's kind of.
Yeah, he wants to know if they're more likely to play all 3 outfielders, Tucker, Brantley, and Alvarez.
Yeah, your outfield rule. Yeah, you don't like to play all 3.
I mean, no one. I'm not the only one that adheres to that type of stuff and large field stuff. I don't think on a 6-game slate, it's much. The opportunity cost is lower, right? Because there's less outfielders that could go off. So you could do that if you want. But of course, I think people lean more towards Alvarez and Tucker. Like more people, like if you had the optimal Houston stack on this slate, it would be Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, and Jason Castro, because you fill a catcher spot, because other than maybe Sal Perez, there's really who are you playing a catcher?
People are going to punt with Melendez. He's 2K. I think that's what they're going to do. I imagine.
Okay, or something. But I'm just saying, as far as what catcher are you afraid of hitting 2 home runs today? Like Sal Perez. He's the best hitting catcher on this slate.
Yeah, he's also expensive. If you care about such things, I feel like he hasn't homered in a while. But I don't really care about those things. And most of it, I like to see if he's still hitting the ball hard, which is kind of important to me to some degree. But as far as, by the way, Ian Anderson is kind of wild, and we haven't really touched on the Mets a lot. Marte's batting second today. He was batting 7th the other day, which is weird. He's been one of the worst hitters in all of baseball. Speaking of like hitting the ball hard and that kind of stuff, I think he was like 1 percentile as far as hard hit rate last time I checked. I'm not afraid of that. I think whatever. Long term, I think Marte's fine, but nobody's playing Marte. I don't think people are playing Lindor. You get the polar bear and Alonso.
Look how expensive they are.
Yeah, but you can make it work. It's not that hard.
If I'm going to pay those prices, I might as well play the Braves against a 50% owned pitcher.
I mean, you could make more than one lineup. You could do both.
That absolutely right. You're absolutely true. It makes sense from that standpoint, but it limited amount of lineups. Yeah, you're right. If I was playing 150 lineups on this slate, I would have some Mets lineups. But I would have. What's the point of me doing the show if I'm like, well, what are you playing in your 150 lineups? All the players on the slate. I'm playing them all.
Well,
that's
so Twitter.
Yes, I will have a lineup that looks like that. It may just be one, but not.
You're saying the people on Twitter are correct when they say you can't lose when you're on 150 because you cover every possible combination.
Every possible combination. I mean, if you did the math, of a 6-game slate, and you just included the players that are in starting lineups, like not bench players, not minor league players that are in the pool that aren't playing on the team.
Yeah.
The amount of combinations that you can make and if you take away the one, like just all one-offs or even 2-1-1-1, if you force that you need to have at least a 3-man stack in the lineup, right? At least a 3-3 even. Let's just say at least a 3-3. You could do 4-2-1-1. You could do, and you tried to, on a 6-game slate, you could do the math on that if you wanted to. The amount of possible lineup combinations on a 6-game slate would be in the at least the tens of millions, if not the hundreds of millions. On a 15-game slate, we're talking about trillions now.
You forget it. Yeah.
So obviously 150 entries, you could cover 1 trillion combinations, right? Of course.
Why are you debunking? Why are you using math and logic and reason to debunk the good theories that you see on Twitter?
It's 2022. Someone has to do it. I go on Twitter for anything. Seems like most people don't have math and logic sense. Someone's got to do it.
We got the Crunch Time crew jumping in about 5 minutes or so. TJ, who's going to be super angry now. We got them all riled up, I imagine. Your take as far as Star Wars. I think Andre's going to be joining as well. Chief meteorologist Kevin Roth. If you're playing PGA this week, PGA, I assume, starts on Thursday, as it typically does. There's a Twitter space discussion for PGA. SDO Cards and Notorious will give you their take as far as from a DFS perspective, as far as just outright winners and things like that. Go ahead and check out the Twitter space. I'm doing one of these next week. I'm going to be a part of it. We're going to be live watching the Celtics and the Bucks. Have you partaken in a Twitter space just yet? I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But I've seen people talk about Twitter Spaces. I've seen people on it. I've never partook or listened to one. I believe it's all audio. Are you aware of this world?
I'm aware of the world. I've not participated in Twitter Spaces because it seems like the only ones that exist are talking about crypto or NFT.
Does that not interest you?
No, the complete opposite of interest me. Right. I look at who's in those spaces and go, oh, those are the people that I should unfollow. Right.
Oh, I want to know who those people are. Name names.
All of them, whatever. Some of them are Rotogrinders. Just saying, I don't care about you pumping your bags. I ain't buying them. I don't care about them. Good luck with your cartoon animals. And I'll see you in 10 years when they're worth nothing. Okay.
Wow. They're going to be worth nothing?
They're going to be worth less than Star Wars.
Star Wars is worth a lot of money. Like, didn't they sell to Disney for like $1 billion?
Yeah.
$4 billion. I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and it was $4 billion to buy Star Wars, $44 billion to buy a site full of crappy Star Wars takes.
What's up, TJ? Speaking of crappy Star Wars takes, I don't know did you hear Blender's take on Star Wars?
Yeah, I was listening, but Dean, contrary to popular belief, people, whether or not Blender enjoys Star Wars, that actually doesn't impact my enjoyment of it. So I am more than happy for him to enjoy some Star Trek, for me to enjoy some Star Wars, for everyone to enjoy whatever they like.
Do you at least understand my reasoning why I don't like Star Wars? Because it feels like I never liked for instance, just background, I didn't like fantasy books either, like Lord of the Rings, like made up like places that you could just make whatever you want up. Like the science fiction that I like were all kind of like Isaac Asimov, like kind of like based on like human reality. If something went wrong, like dystopian, this is what happened, and then something went wrong. So when you introduce me to some universe that it doesn't appeal to me. I can see how it appeals to other people, but not.
Do you not have an imagination? That's a ridiculous take.
Have you ever watched the show on Netflix, Sweet Tooth?
No.
You might like it.
Is it about a world from far, far away that doesn't exist in human reality?
So weirdly enough, it was written before COVID, but it came out like basically right at the start of the pandemic. And it's about a world in a like life-changing pandemic where people go through mutations and stuff like that.
Okay.
Roth, you mentioned Lord of the Rings, and I do a show with Grant. We like usually make a bet, and like the winner has to assign a movie to the other person.
Yeah.
And Grant assigned me Lord of the Rings, And that was the most miserable 3 hours of my life, I think. Oh my God. I don't understand.
He didn't make you watch all three of them?
Well, no, you
Whatever,
can't.
whatever.
That is not in the rules. I don't and again, if you enjoy it, have at it. I'm not here to dampen your experience, but good Lord, that I hated Lord of the Rings. It was impressive, like, what they did. It looked good visually, I guess.
Right.
I just didn't care. I don't care about any of this.
Yeah, I think what was cool about it at the time was that it was the first like massive fantasy setting like that back, with knights and so I thought it was awesome at the time, but you could not pay me enough to watch it again. I don't think so. I'm with you.
Also,
well, to double down on Roth's point there, it was the most awesome thing at the time because it came out in the 40s.
Well,
what?
It was written.
Books.
Yeah, it was written in the 40s. So.
And Avatar sequels are coming out like 20 years too late too. I'm sure people are excited about that.
Yeah, that's so odd.
Are they still coming? James Cameron's still working on those. I think it's happening, right? Avatar.
Yeah. The trailer for the second one's is releasing with Doctor Strange, which is out tomorrow.
There you go. Okay. How are you celebrating May the 4th, TJ? Anything special?
Well, there's a new trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi today, so that's pretty exciting. But other than that, no, nothing in particular, because I watched the Moon Knight finale already this morning. It was absolutely bonkers and amazing. And then I got lots of work to do for my podcast because we're prepping for Doctor Strange premiere tomorrow.
I saw it got really strong ratings, according to the old Rotten Tomatoes, I believe. So people are probably excited about that. Andre, do you care about any of this nonsense we're talking about? What's up, Andre?
What's going on? Yeah, I watch all this stuff. So,
oh, nice.
What's your take? Chime in.
It's all good to me. It's nothing like bad. I love them all. To me, it's like I love Star Wars. My dad got me into it when I was younger. Could never really get into Star Trek at all. That was my thing. Never really was. Just try to enjoy as much as I can. And yeah, obviously Marvel's my thing too as well. So I'll be there tomorrow to see Doctor Strange first thing when it comes out.
I had no idea.
Fast friends.
Yeah, I was doing a show with two Marvel fanboys here.
One day, Dre and I are going to go to a movie together, and it's going to be great.
Just let me know if I have to
Being in different countries is tough, though.
Right.
I don't mind going to Canada, so very US for right now for some bit.
Well, myself and Blender, we're going to step aside, let you guys knock out the early slate. We'll be on later again for the late slate. At least I will. I don't think Blender will be, but I'll be back. I think Roth will be back as well for crunch time, but I'm done with part one. Roth, take it over. The FanDuel crunch time. Me and Blender, we're out.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. As always, Dino. This is indeed FanDuel, sponsored by Crunch Time. Check out the FanDuel 40K Wednesday MLB Squeeze. It's $10K to first, $5.55 to enter. All in all, our sponsor doing amazing things, bringing you this show for free. So please hit that like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. TJ, you're laughing about something. What's up?
This is FanDuel, sponsored by Crunch Time.
Did I say FanDuel sponsored by Crunch Time?
Yeah.
Damn it. This is Crunch Time, sponsored by FanDuel.
I wanted to let you get away with it, but I couldn't help but giggle.
No, I appreciate you calling me out on that. Hey, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is every game except the bad news. The bad news being, how interested are we in Kansas City? TJ?
Very on St. Louis side of that game.
Is this like a tournament take, or
they're arguably my favorite offense on the slate.
Okay. Well, it just looks increasingly likely that they're going to see a delay. I'll tell you this, it's not my favorite for cash games. Like if you were playing this in cash, is this a cash play or is this really mostly just a tournament thing?
A lot of the batters would be, but there are good enough pivots that we can find ways off of it if we need to.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to tell you to not play it yet. This game, of course, does not start at lock. We still have more than an hour until first pitch here. So I still have a little bit of time to watch this, but just radar looks a lot more active than what forecast models were showing. More storms behind it. So there is a chance that it gets postponed as well, or that the game doesn't resume. So I've got that as yellow orange. I would avoid it in cash. You can hold on to it for tournaments, but check back with me. I will be updating it before first pitch. So check back and we'll see how things look. TJ.
So that would be the thing with it too, is like I don't have interest in either of the pitchers in that game. So a delay and resume would be perfectly fine, other than the maybe like you get the lefty that's the really nice matchup for St. Louis out of there, but worse things could happen. So like a delay and resume would be okay, but yeah, the way if the delay and stop would be the dagger.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will keep my eyes on that. Just don't play it in cash for now. TJ, hold it for GPPs and just look for an update before first pitch. Outside of that, I don't really see any issues here with this early slate weather-wise. Everything else looks good. So let's talk about what we're planning on doing. Dre, you want to kick us off here with a little either just an overview, or you can talk about the pitchers?
Well, it's a small slate today. They split up today with 2 slates, 6 games, I think, on FanDuel that we have here today. Me personally, if I was playing today on this slate in particular, I would probably try to get up to the most expensive pitcher today, which is Justin Verlander, going against Seattle. I think that's just a good matchup overall. You see he's coming in at 10-8 today on FanDuel. It's a good price for him. I think he's just the best overall pitcher to go with. Sorry. I think he's his best, obviously, overall top pitcher to go with today. Good in cash games, obviously, good in tournaments. It's not to me going against Seattle. Seattle obviously has I think a high strikeout. I haven't looked at the lineup yet today. I think they have a high strikeout guys in there. I think at least 5. I'm correct for when I last checked the projected lineup was earlier today. And then we got my next pitcher that I would probably go with in tournaments today would be probably Hernandez, just because he's going against Arizona today. I think that's a good matchup for him against there today. I think it's in Miami, so you don't have to really worry about the weather so much. But those are the 2 options that I would work with on FanDuel. I'm not really going to get deep into pitcher today, especially on this type of slate, just because of the nature of it. You go with a little bit of Tyler McGill, but it kind of scares you with the matchup against Atlanta. McGill's, I know, it's a talented, good pitcher for the Mets. Young guy that they got. I like him, but not so I'm going to be heavy on. And like you said, Roth, with the weather concerns in St. Louis, I would be on a little Adam Wainwright, but since the weather is a concern, I probably would just X out of that game completely, in my opinion.
Okay. All right, TJ, you want to give me your pitcher takes here, both FanDuel and DK, please?
Yeah, so FanDuel, it's same boat for me. My favorite one is Verlander. My second one, and maybe my favorite for tournaments, would be Hernandez. Hernandez really allows you to get in some cheap bats, and Verlander's really the only one on the entire slate you're worried about blowing up the slate. So as long as he doesn't just absolutely crush and Hernandez has some good strikeout upside, I don't mind that at all. So that's probably my favorite tournament pitcher. If you're playing cash, Verlander is your guy on FanDuel. On DraftKings, you see a little bit different pricing on some of these guys. So Verlander is still the top option by far, but Ian Anderson is a guy you can look at for an SP2, and he's a very interesting one because he's all the way down at 7,400 on DK. So he's probably your lock and load SP2. I still do like Hernandez for tournaments, but Ian Anderson at that cheaper price tag would be the one that I'd want to go with there.
Okay. That's it for pitcher. That's all we got.
Yeah, like there's some guys like a Mike Clevenger you could take a shot on in tournaments. Same with Tyler McGill. McGill will be highly owned, especially on DK. But Clevenger, I haven't looked yet to see where he's at see how stretched out he is. I believe this is his first start of the year, so I'm not sure what his pitch count is. So the main guys I like are Verlander and Anderson on DK, sprinkle in some Hernandez and McGill. And then on FanDuel, it's really just Verlander and Hernandez for me.
All right, let's talk about some of the bats. I know that you mentioned liking St. Louis. What else do you like? And what's the chalk here?
So there are 5 stacks to me that, I mean, it's a small slate and you can really play almost anybody. There's nothing that's going to be bad. Mm-hmm. What I'm finding is what we're seeing for some chalk is a little bit of Miami and a little bit of Detroit. Those seem to be the teams that people are going to so that they can fit in Verlander. And so because of that, those are the teams that I'm going away from. My top 3 stacks on the slate were St. Louis, which I think I'm now going to get off of a little bit just because I think I'm actually going to only play the one team just being on crunch time and now with there being some weather stuff. So St. Louis, but be wary of the weather. And then the next 2 are Houston, as well as where's my last one here? And San Diego. The Padres are number 3. Houston are 2 or 1A, 1B kind of up there with St. Louis.
All right. Dre, stack wise, what do you like?
I love Houston today. I love Houston every day though, so it's a problem that I have with them, especially with the way that they did my Yankees a couple years back. But they are a good team. You have to admit that, regardless of the team scales they had back a couple of years ago. I think they're my favorite team to target on the slate today by far. I know it makes it hard to get into lineups today just because you want to have just because people want to get Verlander in, but I'm okay with using anybody in this lineup. I'll even go with the bottom half of this lineup if I have to, just to get some Houston, just get a Houston stack in there, because they very well can go off in this spot, in my opinion, against Bresh. So Houston would be number one for me. I was going to be a little bit more on San Diego. I mean, a little bit more on St. Louis, but since the weather's a concern, like TJ said, I'll probably just end up going a little bit more with like a Detroit, use them as a secondary stack, and then same thing with Miami, using them as a secondary stack as well. Getting more San Diego, take some chances on Atlanta too, because they are a good hitting team overall, and they could probably get some McGill today. So yeah, those are the guys I typically would like today for sure.
Okay. Good stuff. We still got 30 minutes roughly here. Let's go position by position. And Dre, you can lead us off with a little catcher talk. And then, of course, Fanduel, catcher first base, kind of tie it in together if you can.
Okay, I'll bring both Fanduel, catcher and first base. So on this slate, what I typically do, and what I typically would like would be pretty much like the Houston guys I would be targeting here. So first base catcher, I would simply pretty much go with Gurriel and Castro. Sorry, guys, this is not my player pool. This is just a general overlook of all the positions. Otherwise, I would give you I will break it down a little bit more, but Gurriel would be probably my top guy. I would try to roster, and Castro would be next because, like I said, I don't mind playing anybody on Houston today. Detroit-wise, though, I do definitely like Spencer Torkelson. He's someone I like today a lot to get to, and Jonathan Scope too as well. Jonathan Scope is, to me, at 2.2K. I think that's a little bit too cheap for what he brings. And the guy who was hitting the ball very well last year, but I love him in this matchup against Peters. So he would be someone I would definitely try to target and get well over the field on for sure. And then go with, obviously, you can go with Salvador Perez, who in a Kansas City game, you want to take a chance as a one-off. I think that's perfectly fine. And then I would just go with target like one of these Atlanta guys. Definitely would try to get over on them and be like with Matt Olson. And try to be like overweight to the field on him, which won't be that hard. Take my chances on that and see what happens.
All right, TJ.
Yeah, so DraftKings, I think your play is Castro. If you're playing a catcher over there, which you obviously have to, he's 3,400. It's not the full on punt. If you want, you could play Jose Herrera, Peyton Henry, who are two guys just near the complete bottom. But I wouldn't want to play somebody like MJ Melendez, who we're actually projecting as the best point per dollar play, simply because he's from that KC St. Louis game for cash games there. On FanDuel for the first base and catcher position, I think you're looking at probably Jonathan Scope or Spencer Torkelson for cash games. But a one-off I do really like for tournaments is Daniel Vogelbach. He's facing Pineda. Pineda might pick up a little bit of ownership. I like him quite a bit. Gurriel's still interesting there as well. Goldschmidt is my favorite play, but he's from that St. Louis game. And so my thought process right now with this one is I will have a St. Louis stack in tournaments, but I don't want to use any of them as one-offs, because there are other one-offs I can use in different games that if that does end up getting postponed or delayed after a couple innings and not resumed, then I'm not just stuck with one of it. I'd rather go big or go home and get a full stack with those guys, hope the game plays the whole full time, or just completely avoid it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. You want to talk first base here, I guess more so on DK, or did you do that?
Yeah, no, I can do that quick. So on DK, it's definitely Spencer Torkelson. He's 2,700. That's near minimum price over there. He's facing a lefty. It's a young guy who's just been absolutely crushing. You could play Garrett Cooper as well against Madison Bumgarner, but I personally would rather play Torkelson there. He's a little bit cheaper. You got a guy like Seth Beer as well, who's cheap and might project okay. On the expensive end, I think if you want to pay up, your best option's Matt Olson. Again, this would have been Paul Goldschmidt for me, but it's because of the weather. It's Olson. If you want to play Vogelback, I would way rather do it on FanDuel where he's 2,600 as opposed to DK where he's 47.
I haven't bought a player jersey in like 20 years, but I really want to buy the jersey for Beer. Is Seth Beer, is that his name?
Yeah.
Like it would never go out of style. You could wear this for the next 100 years and it would just say Beer on the back and it'd be perfect.
You could wear it for the next 100 years. You could wear it for the next 100 beers.
You could do whatever you want. It's just amazing. I really want this guy to come to Houston so that I can proudly buy a Beer jersey. Somebody in the front office make that happen. Dre, anything you want to cover at first base that you didn't already, or do you just want to jump to second?
Me jump to second. I pretty much covered everyone who I talked about at first and catcher that would play today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, second base, Dre.
Okay, so obviously you got Jonathan Scope, who's multi-position eligibility on FanDuel, first and second, so he's obviously an option as well. Javier Baez is someone good. I like today. Ozzy Albies, part of like those Atlanta stacks, which should be owned, but I don't know how much owned they're going to be today. Is someone I would go with too as well. And obviously, like I said before, Houston guys, Jose Altuve, 2.9 is too cheap for him. I love him today, and Mlb Dfs, someone else that I do like a lot today. He's second shortstop and third base. So any one of those positions I would use him in, but I would pretty much try to target him probably maybe in the shortstop or third base position, which I think would be a little bit more better as compared to the second base. You can also go with a guy like Jazz Chisholm, who I think is a great option as a one-off today, or even in your Miami mini stacks if you want to go that way, along with John Birdie as well. Not really much that I have here. Like I said, I'll be targeting certain teams from this, maybe even Jake Cronenworth as well. But if you're targeting San Diego today a lot, but that's really it in my opinion.
All right, TJ, second.
Yes. So for cash games on FanDuel, for me personally, it's by far Jose Altuve. If you need to save salary and go to somebody like Scope or John Birdie, who's leading off for Miami, you can absolutely do it. Birdie's a guy who's fast against Mad Bum, a lefty. I like that one quite a bit, so I'd pick him over Scope. But for me, it's Jose Altuve. Aledmus Diaz and Javi Baez are two plays that I'm okay with, but for me, they're definitely at plays at shortstop because shortstop sucks today. You got Francisco Lindor, who's underpriced. We'll talk about it. But other than that, and Jake Cronenworth, who's also second base eligible. But these are guys that I would just rather play at shortstop. As I'm kind of even looking at it, there's another guy, Jazz Chisholm, who I'm into, second base and shortstop eligible. Good with playing him. But all of these guys that I like at second base are also shortstop eligible. So I want to play them there because there's just about double the guys that I like at the second base position.
Sure.
So
but
anyone
also, you can't play four shortstops if you like four of these guys who were second and short. So can you play some of these dudes in both spots?
Yeah. So that's what I mean. I'm putting the ones who don't have the eligibility. Those are the ones I want to play there. I'm going to play Jose Altuve. If I'm stacking, if I'm doing a tournament St. Louis stack, then that I'm playing Tommy Edman at second. If I'm doing a Padres stack, well, then I'm putting Jake Cronenworth at shortstop because I can also play Jerickson Profar at second base, but I can't play him at shortstop. So any of these guys that have shortstop eligibility, I'm playing them there as opposed to second base because there's just more players at second that I like.
Okay. Take us to third.
Yeah. So at third base, you have Birdie here, who's a possibility that you could play as well. But my favorite is Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman and Manny Machado are the top two that I'm getting to. My other favorite was Nolan Arenado, but again, that's just for the tournament stacks because of the weather. Aledmus Diaz has third base eligibility if you need to get him there and save salary, but I'd rather play him at short. That's personally who I'm playing quite a bit at short today is Aledmus Diaz. but that's really it. This is a pay up spot for me mostly. It's really a Bregman or Machado kind of day for me.
Okay.
Jose Ramirez as well. In tournaments, nobody's going to play him because of the matchup. This is still Jose Ramirez, so you can play him in tournaments as well. But my top two are Machado and Bregman.
All right, Dre, third base.
I completely agree with everything he said.
Okay.
Jose Ramirez is definitely the guy I would say that's going to be well on their own, and he's a perfect one-off option. I would probably get well over the field on him for sure today. And obviously, if you're going with the St. Louis stack in that game at all, Nolan Arenado, we don't want to forget about him. I think he's a good option too today to take a chance on and go with. And even if you wanted to get a little crazy, also with the Kansas City stack too on the other side, play Bobby Witt Jr. He's a good option today. His first home run, I think, yesterday or a couple of days ago. So he's probably gonna, probably got a little bit more confidence now, maybe take a little bit more swings, and maybe we can get one off of Wainwright. We'll see, depending on if that game plays out today. And then obviously you go with the Candelario, who in your Detroit stacks, who I think is a good option today to go with. He's been hitting pretty good the last couple of games, so I would probably take a chance on him, especially at his price of 2-3. He's cheap, and he can go perfectly in Detroit stacks, or even if you want to use him as a one-off.
All right, Dre, you want to take us to short?
Shortstop, as TJ mentioned earlier, before that, it's kind of a weak position, so you can definitely take some chance, do some of the second baseman over to shortstop. Baez, as we talked about before, Cronenworth, those are good options too. I like going with Kim today as well. Another option that we didn't mention before. Paul DeJong for St. Louis, if you're playing in St. Louis, that would be perfect as well too today. Other than that, there's not that many guys I'm going to be really interested in. You could if you want to take a chance against Ian Anderson and go with like Francisco Lindor, I wouldn't hate it. But other than that, there's not really many guys I want to go with in this position today. This probably, like he said, just use the guys from second base that are multi-position eligibility to cover that shortstop position.
Yeah, TJ, anything you want to add there, or just basically what you said at second?
Yeah, so it's exactly what I said at second, but it's kind of ugly. You do have Francisco Lindor, who's underpriced. Jazz Chisholm's underpriced. Javi Baez is underpriced. But I personally, just with the lineup construction, there's other guys I'd like to pay up for. I keep landing on DeJong in those St. Louis stacks or Aledmus Diaz, just because I like saving salary there to pay up at other positions. If you really want a short slate 1%er, 2%er who could hit you a home run, if you're not playing Verlander, Suarez at shortstop could hit a bomb tonight, and nobody's going to be playing him.
Okay, take us to the outfield.
Yeah, so at outfield, we are jam-packed with some fantastic plays. Your top priced option is probably Yordan Alvarez. Kyle Tucker's out there as well, but you also have Ronald Acuna, who is underpriced on FanDuel. He's 3,600. And Ronald Acuna is a guy that he's coming back from injury, and a month from now, he's probably going to be 4,500. And so this is a train that you can just absolutely get on now, even though the matchup isn't very good. If you are wanting to take a chance on these St. Louis guys, I love Tommy Edman. I love Tyler O'Neill. But the other guys, but probably, which will be quite chalky, but I do like them, are these Houston guys. It's Alvarez, it's Tucker. It's mixing in a little bit of Brantley if you need to save salary. Those are the guys that I'm mostly targeting. And then for some cheapy options, somebody that I really like some of these Arizona guys are projecting well. I'm not getting to them because I'm playing quite a bit of Hernandez. But a one-off that I really, really like, and somebody who's very, very cheap if you need to save salary, is Ben Gamel leading off against Pineda for Pittsburgh.
All right, Dre, you want to talk the outfield for us?
Just give me Yordan, more Yordan, and more Yordan. He's my favorite outfielder of the day today. I'm gonna get as much of it as I possibly can, even or definitely in your stacks for sure. Any of these lefties, I think, like Kyle Tucker, Brantley, those guys to me, Houston outfielders, just to me the best outfield today to go with on the slate. I will have a lot of Houston today if I was playing on this slate. I don't mind getting to Jorge Soler 2,900 on FanDuel. I think it's a good price. I'm going against Bumgarner. I think that's a great option to try to roster him, see if you get a home run or two. And if you are going with going against Verlander, I don't mind going a guy like Jesse Winker as well too. Maybe he hit a home run today. He has the power to do it. I don't mind it today. It's an okay play. And I know we talked about like TJ said, going with some guys against Arizona, guys going against Hernandez in Arizona. So David Peralta is another guy that I think is interesting today. That's a good GBP option. Probably want him though more so in the stacks, but I think he can be useful today as a little bit of a one-off too as well. Harrison Bader, if you're playing that St. Louis game, I like him today a lot, but we don't know if he's going to play. How that game's going to play out today as far as weather-wise. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I would just try to get just as much use as I possibly can in the outfield. Ronald Acuna is a good option too as well. 3,600. He's cheap on FanDuel at that price for what he should be. And DK, I think they got him probably about right, 5'9". But he's going to be a lot higher as the season goes on. So yeah, roster him for sure if you can.
Yeah,
Okay.
cash games on FanDuel, I think you're choosing between 5 players: Alvarez, Acuna, Tucker, Brantley, and Gamel. And on DK, it's and obviously there are guys like Jorge Soler that I'm okay with as well. I think that actually probably would be a cash game play as well that I just personally don't think I'd land on, but he's a fantastic play. Same with Brian Reynolds, 2,700. He's too cheap as well. That's a fantastic play. You can play him in cash games. So I take it back. It's a pool of 7 guys, but I think those are the 7 best outfielders on the slate for a 3-position spot. On DraftKings, Jorge Soler is just too cheap. He's 4K. So I think he's probably the first one you slot in there. Brian Reynolds would be the second one, 3,400. You definitely are playing him in cash games over there. And then in your final spot on DK, I think that's probably where you're choosing between Alvarez or Tucker. But if you need to save salary, another good option is Robbie Grossman leading off at 3,400.
Okay. I'm going to open this up to questions. We don't have any questions. I know it's kind of at a weird time. But if you've got any questions and you're in the Discord, what's up, TJ?
It's a good time to bring up that I did, in fact, last night, Spidey signed the letter to send to Rob Manfred to say what the hell is going on with all these home runs.
Right.
The Nolan Arenado, of course, failed last night. I think he flew out twice, maybe 3 times.
I like to think they were right at the fence, though. They were that close.
Yeah,
if it weren't
I wasn't
for the
watching.
Crappy balls.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't watching, but when I saw fly out on my phone, I just kind of assumed the guy jumped over the wall to catch it.
Right. Same. Yeah.
We have in fact sent the letter to Rob Manfred, signed from Spider-Man himself. So we're working on it. If we get 50 likes, we can definitely work on the Spidey bomb. But I mean, if I'm being honest, it's probably going to be 5 to 7 business days before it reaches them.
Right. It makes sense.
I don't want to lie to the people. It'll be 5 to 7 business days.
Right. The other thing is that it's still, you look at the temperatures across these games, it's still cold. That cold air has really been hanging on in a lot of spots. So we're seeing temperatures in the 50s for most of these games. So yes, the ball apparently is an issue, but also until it starts warming up, I don't really expect that we're going to see those home runs increasing all that much. So we shall see. A couple questions coming in here, and we have a few on YouTube as well that I can jump over to. CLT Go Blue says, what are the top value stacks on DK if I'm trying to double up on high-priced SPs? Would Cleveland be on the list? Dre, if you're trying to double up with high-priced pitchers, what are your favorite value stacks over on DK?
Well, let me look right now.
Yeah. And TJ, do you have a take on this? I'm going to pull up the YouTube and see if we can get some questions from there.
So the answer is Detroit. However, that will also be what everyone is doing who is trying to double up on expensive pitchers. Mm-hmm. So I think a way you could do it that will be somewhat chalky, but not as quite chalky, would be Pittsburgh. They have some strong hitters in good positions. And if you just include a guy like Vogelbach in your stack, who's overpriced, but not that expensive on DraftKings, you are getting different than the field already. Same with Miami. There's cheap plays, there's solid plays, but they're going to be owned. The way I think I would want to do it if I want to get really different, is you pick the back end of that Houston lineup and you go Castro and you go Diaz and maybe you slide McCormick in there and you get a good lineup in a good spot that isn't going to be the people who are going to be owned on that team are going to be the top of the order.
Okay. All right, Dre.
Personally, I personally probably would say, you said Cleveland before you mentioned. Cleveland's not a bad option if you want to go there. I probably wouldn't use them today as much. Arizona's not a bad option if you want to target against Hernandez on DK. A stack I would definitely probably be interested in probably getting a little bit of exposure to, maybe more so as a secondary stack. So on DK, I typically run like 5-3s and I think I want to say 5-4s. So I would probably definitely use him as a secondary stack for sure. And try to go with like some other guys. Like you said, the back of that Houston lineup is what I love the most today. So I would probably be on that a lot because not a lot of people are going to be targeting that today.
And so I think there's a lot of people in the YouTube chat right now asking for another weather update if you're able to, Roth. As it stands, like kind of where we were at from the last update, we were saying no to those bats in cash, yes to those bats in tournaments.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'd stand now. And I do want to say, I'm going to update this again before first pitch of that game, which is still almost an hour away, I think. So here's what's happening. Forecast models have this game with just some light rain, like just this storm system that's moving in, supposed to fall apart, and the game's supposed to be fine. But I'm just looking at radar and it's ugly. Like it's way uglier than forecast models were anticipating it being. So I am not fully convinced that it will fade away. So I want to watch this line of storms, see if it starts gradually weakening. And if it does, I'll feel better about it. If it doesn't, I'm worried because after this line, there's still some scattered light rain. And then this evening, it's a wash. Like you can't play it at 6 or 7 or 8. It's a wash in Kansas City this evening. So you can hold on for tournaments if you make sure that you check Twitter for an update before first pitch. But I don't think I'd play it in cash right now. And just stay tuned. Yeah.
And if this game does we get an update from you saying do not play it before first pitch, we got lots of options. All we're sacrificing is Arizona, Miami. So that's kind of one of the reasons I don't love the chalky Miami guys as much, because I'm kind of okay sacrificing that game other than my pitcher. And I'm waiting on that game a little bit because I do really like St. Louis in tournaments. But if they don't play, I'm fine with pivoting to Houston. I'm fine with pivoting to San Diego. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to get the game in. I want to see this line start to fade away before I actually feel good about it. Because when I'm seeing something that models are not showing at all, it's always a little bit dicey. So just be a little patient with that. Give me another 30 minutes. And hopefully I'll have, a better idea of what's going to happen there. But I think a delay looks pretty likely. If you put me on, Kevin, what's going to happen? I think they late start and I think they eventually play. But give me a little bit longer to watch that. And hopefully I'll have a little more certainty. Back to some QQs here. This is a weather question, so I'll take this. RC player says, Roth, what do you consider to be a big enough sample size in terms of weather edge? I'm seeing some good looking unders today. I don't think that there's a hard number in my mind. I love when the sample size is up over 50. But when you're early in the season and you have these games where the temperature is in the 40s and 50s, that's not very common. So because it's not common, we don't have a big sample size to pull games from. So you just have to understand that that's part of it. But that cold weather creates unders, so I'm on board with it if the weather makes sense, even if it's under a small sample size.
Yeah, 2 things with that quick, if I can jump in.
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
I feel like you got to use logic of,
yes,
if it's cold, then wind's blowing in, but there's plus home runs. Obviously, something really weird happened that game if it's a small sample size. But if it's cold and it's wind's blowing in or vice versa, and the numbers match it, you can go, oh yeah, this does make sense. I'm going to jump on that. And the other thing I want to say is, like, obviously you need Twitter to be successful in DFS. Like, it is the number one importance of app. Mm-hmm. If you are a MLB DFS player, having Roth's notifications on are one of the most important things you can do. I only have tweet notifications on for 2 different people for DFS, and it's lineups so that I get MLB lineups in and Roth. For NBA, obviously, it's a little bit different. There's more breaking news, but that's it for baseball. It's as important as you could have. It's not like me where you got to sift through 3 or 4 comic book tweets for every one DFS tweet. Roth usually keeps them pretty tight. So yeah, it's a good notification to have on.
So I was curious, does it piss you off if I tweet something right before lock, but it just happens to be about whatever, or I tweet about basketball because I love basketball? You're just like, are you thinking something's happening? And I'm like, oh no, it's just Roth babbling about Giannis again.
No, that's fine. You gotta with the amount, like I would be so hypocritical if I ever judged for that, because like I have people following me for my Agents of Fandom stuff. I have people following me for Rotogrinders, and I'm just like constantly just like firing both out.
Right.
I take no offense if people even mute me. So
all right.
A good bet also is just do like for first inning results. If you want to just make a little bet on that along with the unders, like do like no runs in the first inning or a tie or whatever. To get a little bit of edge that way too. They tend to be good lines anyway.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people have been hitting me up on Twitter asking about or talking about the NRFI bets.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to figure out what the hell that meant. But apparently no run first inning is kind of becoming a popular bet.
Very popular.
Yeah, and with the weather the way it is and with the dead ball that's happening, it seems to be going pretty well. Okay, back to some QQs here. And Red Sox, what are your thoughts on a Seattle 3-man stack for leverage? Unnecessary, or is a one-off better, Dre?
I would say, I mean, if you're running a lot of lineups in tournaments, I definitely don't mind it. I would have maybe 1 or 2 of them. I wouldn't go crazy with it. Verlander is just too good of a pitcher, in my opinion. I don't think he's had a bad game so far this year, if I'm correct. I'm pulling it up right now. He hasn't really had a bad outing. He's given him a couple hits, but a lot of strikeouts in there too. So 3 earned runs is the most he's given up against Toronto. I don't think so. Honestly, Seattle's not as talented as Toronto. So I personally would run like a one-off, if anything. Hope for that home run.
agree. I'd rather a one-off there. If I'm doing a mini stack, it would be just Winker and Suarez. 5 minutes to lock, 3 minutes to lock, and 10 likes away from a home run play. So let's see if we hit there while we hit these QQs.
Excellent. If you guys are on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll get a home run call here from TJ. A couple more questions, TJ. FanDuel Cash, Bertie or Gamble? Last piece.
Gamble.
Aside.
No, Cash go Birdie. Sorry, he'll be higher owned, so play him in Cash.
Okay. Aside FanDuel Cash, Dre, you want Varsho and Brantley or Tucker and I assume that's supposed to be Lopez, but he says Yepes.
No, it's Yepes.
It is Yepes. That's a real name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give it a second one.
Okay. DKGPP, TJ, would you consider Mad Bum as a mid-range GPP pitcher option?
Sorry. I would not.
Was that was Cash or was that tournament?
The one was Cash. It was Varsho, Brantley, or Tucker Yepes.
Go Varsho Brantley because Yepes is St. Louis.
Yeah, I was to say if it's Cash, then definitely do. If it's Cash, do the first one. If it's tournaments, the second one. I'm always thinking tournament. Sorry.
Good job. No, all good. Dre, similar thought process with some back end of chalk your stacks. How about St. Louis? Yepes on down offers a lot of savings and a good matchup. TJ, I think you're all about this.
Love it for tournaments. Absolutely love it for tournaments.
Great.
I agree. If you think that game's going to play, run it out there.
Yeah.
If you want to go Yepes, Pujols, O'Neal, like you can play like that Bader, you can play whoever the heck you want.
All right. Brantley or Gurriel in a FanDuel GPP, Dre?
Brantley.
Like we have time in this Kansas City game, right? We don't need to know now. There's enough pivots, I assume, that we can figure out.
Yeah. It's just like there are a lot of good plays from Miami that people want to play. So that's kind of is just the deciding between them.
Right. Okay. I just can't fathom it's going to fade out the way that models show it is, because it's still a thunderstorm rolling in. But again, give me 20 minutes from now, like right around noon Central Time, I will have an update. Probably a few minutes after noon because models come in right at noon. So give me a few minutes after noon, and I will post an update for you guys. Tom, DK Cash, Henry Reynolds or Herrera Grossman? TJ, I'll give that one to you. Henry Reynolds or Herrera Grossman? First one. Okay. It's actually all of those questions there, and just in time. Okay, that's good. Just in time as we're coming up on the lock. And with that, we can clear on out of here. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already doing so at
We're at
KevinRothWx.
49 likes. If one person hits the like button, we'll do it. I did it already.
Oh, hang on. Maybe I can hit. I don't have it pulled up.
There we go.
We
hit it.
All right. Let's get your home run call.
All right. Home run call of the day. It's for a higher owned play. The person I think is most likely to hit a home run today is going to be Manny Machado. For a cheapie, somebody that's lower, maybe a little bit lower owned, but if you need a cheap home run call, it's going to be Ben Gamel for me today. But Manny Machado is the player I think most likely to hit a home run.
Okay. Dre, you want to give a home run call while we're here?
Jordan Alvarez and
give
me also Jose Ramirez today to the home run for Clevenger.
All right, good stuff, guys. With that, we're going to get on out of here. So for Dre, for TJ, and of course for our wonderful production team working hard behind the scenes, we appreciate you. We love you, and we will catch you later today. You have been crunched.